So you got it going. You got to go. Why can't you be rocked? Totally rocked.
They look so beautiful. Honey, this is exciting.
Oh, it's on a slight delay, so it got me like when I was troubleshooting.
Oh, okay.
I just have mine up so I can track the feed. I'm watching it here. It's actually broadcasting on your computer, but I'm tracking it on mine.
Oh, great.
So it's on like, I don't know, a 30-second delay.
Can you make this slideshow like
Oh,
play?
you want me to make it?
Can you like make it just like rotate through this stuff?
Oh, sure.
Can you? Yeah. I'll
Sure.
let you. Thanks.
Okay.
You know what? My friend came and picking. Oh, you can do it here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is for you. This one's for you. No, that's for my friend. I mean, she's giving it to somebody who's got to sign. Yes, John Hancock. All right, there you go, lady. Just sign.
Should it be brighter?
We can turn the lights down. I'm just getting some things set up for Debbie. But do you know how to dim the lights here?
Oh, it's because you're using this little guy. I thought you were using ours.
No.
Okay.
I'm just using what's set up.
Okay. I wonder why she used that one. Am I falling apart? Somebody falling apart. This is in the way, this little cord here.
Oh.
We can move that.
Hey, Allison, are you doing audio visual?
Yes. So we are actually streaming live.
Wow. Nice. Yeah, she's got such a good crowd. I'm
Yes,
so
she does. This is wonderful.
She promotes. I mean, she knows everybody, and she really promotes her stuff and gets her stuff out there. So.
Yeah.
Testing. So we're going to start the program in about 5 minutes. So y'all grab some food and grab something to drink and then come ahead and take your seats. We're going to start the program in about 5 minutes.
Watch out, you're on camera.
Right. Everyone's be up. Lori, we're right here. Are you ready?
Here. Yes, we are all set.
We're right here.
Sorry. I would have been in the way. All right.
Welcome everybody. Please take your seats. We're going to have a short program. Can we just give that piano player an amazing hand? I'm really lucky. That's my big brother, Mark Sanders. He came in from Santa Fe to entertain us, and after our program, he will be back on the piano. So welcome to the book launch for Almost a Minyan. My name is, I know, right? My name is Deborah Weingarten, and I published this book, and I'm throwing this party for you. So we appreciate you. Welcome. So if you have your smartphones, do me a favor and just take pictures and post on Facebook all through the thing. We're going to have people live streaming it. We're actually live streaming it over the internet, so people all over the United States can join us. So there's another, 50 or 100 people out in the world joining us. And you'll be able to have more food and drink after the program. We're not going to keep you long, so we just want to have an opportunity to say a few words. So I'm just waiting for people to kind of get settled here. So if y'all would just find a seat anywhere, Carolyn, y'all just grab a chair and sit down. So now I'm going to actually ask one of our rabbis, Rabbi Gail Swedrow, to come up and say a few words. Please welcome the rabbi.
Thank you, Deborah. So as this book came to be closer to coming into being, Deborah asked me, in the spirit of Fiddler on the Roof, which is a musical near and dear to my heart, so, Rabbi, is there a blessing for a book release? Like, I don't know, but that's an excellent question. Let me see what we can find. So, did a little bit of research, and it seems as though there's a blessing for everything, right? A blessing when you see a rainbow, a blessing when you meet a dignitary, a blessing when you're in a room of a very large gathering of people, and try as I might, there did not seem to be a blessing for the completion of a book. Many who have been involved with bringing a book into the world have compared it to the act of bringing a child into the world. That it's an act of creation, a labor of love. Once this being comes into the world, you never really know what's going to happen with it. It sort of takes on a mind and a life of its own. And while our tradition has many ready-to-use blessings, there are so many life moments that the rabbis of our ancient traditions just didn't think to at least put pen to paper, as it were, for these blessings. Maybe they existed in their minds and in an oral tradition, but we don't have records for blessings for things like childbirth or for writing a book. And as part of our 10,000 Faces of Torah project, where we're writing our very own Torah with our Soferet, Jen Taylor-Friedman, she taught that there is no blessing for completing writing a Torah because there's not really an end. We're compelled, and it's incumbent upon us to read it and to see ourselves as being a part of the story and the process. So while a storybook is certainly different than a Torah, perhaps there is a connection, and this is why there is no formal blessing in our tradition upon completing a book. Because a story is only a story if we read it and engage with it. And yet, we have many thoughts of gratitude in our hearts this evening. And so in addition to reciting Shechianu in a moment, thanking God for bringing us to this moment of sharing almost a minyan with the world, we also offer a blessing from our hearts. So, Creator of all, bless this book. Let it take root and flourish. Bless the efforts of all those involved in this process. Let their worries subside. May their work truly be a reflection of the unique holiness of each individual that you created, and may it be a way to bring goodness into this world. Amen. Amen. And we'll join together in reciting the Shechianu, and perhaps our publisher and author and illustrator might be able to stand if they feel so comfortable doing so, and we'll all join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higyanu l'zman hazeh.
Thank you, Rabbi. I would now like to invite the author, Lori Klein, to come up and say a few words. Please welcome Lori Klein.
Well, I would first like to start by thanking my amazing publisher who has helped Susie, the illustrator, and I through a long, arduous process. being here today. It really is wonderful. I especially want to thank my dad and so on, Arthur and Judy, who've flown in from Pittsburgh. Pardon me while I bring out my cheat sheet. Okay. I also wanted to make a special thanks to the whole team that came together to make this book. It wasn't just me and Susan and Deb, but there's the publicist and there's the design person. There's so many people that go into doing this. I originally thought that writing was a solo kind of thing, and trust me, it is not. And I'm also so touched that I have friends from so many different walks of life who are here tonight, and it's beautiful and it's kind of rocking. It's, different parts of your reality all coming together. And another thing that has really been touchingly beautiful, as I've already had 2 little girls come up to me and say that they enjoyed my story. And that really was the most wonderful thing to hear of all. Excuse me. So I thanked Deb, but I want to give you a few adjectives because it's not just thanks you were there. Deb has been the most positive, energetic, reassuring, generous, and calming publisher one could ever ask for. And trust me, I pushed it. So people asked me why this book was important for me to write in the first place. And I come from a very traditional Jewish background and a traditional Jewish home. And religion was something just deeply wonderful to me. It started out in preschool where there was an Ima and Abba every Shabbat, and it was just such a special thing to be part of. And today, it almost fills me with glee when I see little kids continuing on with those special practices. It could be Shabbat things, it could be special occasions. But it's just wonderful for me to see. And the opposite side of that is it really saddens me when I see Jewish households in which the kids just really don't know what's going on. I had the sad experience of talking with a couple kids at the beginning of the year and saying, so on Rosh Hashanah, we go to synagogue and the boy said, what's a synagogue? And I went, ouch. So I think that it was very important to me because I want to make sure that kids continue to know, not just that we're Jewish, but these are the things that we do, that we have minyans and that we have tefillin that we can wear and that we can have tefillin that we can wear, and how exciting it can be to become part of the adult Jewish community just at age 12 or 13. I was also asked, what was the process of this whole book? Am I still okay?
Yeah, I'll get to the book.
Okay. I was asked what the process was, and the book actually went through an interesting process. I wrote the book some 30 years ago when I moved here to Austin from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, especially my neighborhood, Squirrel Hill, has tons of Jews. Jews every year. Saturday afternoon, I used to love, outside my dad and Judy's house, you could sit Saturday afternoon and just watch people walking up and down the street, with the black pants and the white shirt and the coat on. And it was just amazing. And I came here to Austin, and this congregation, the Agudas team, was so welcoming and friendly, and I became involved in the morning minyan and found that we often really had a hard time getting a minyan. And as authors do, it started coming out through the fingertips and the pen. And that's how the first manuscript of Almost a Minyan came about, because we almost had a minyan a lot of the time. Here, we almost have a minyan, right? And then sometimes we really almost have a minyan, and we get really excited. And then occasionally, we have 9. 9 people. It's kind of like our Sabbath ends when there are 3 stars in the sky. And I have a theory, there are never 2 stars in the sky. If there are 2, there's a 3rd out there. And often for a Minyan, if we have 9 people, we're gonna find a 10th. Sometimes we have to call someone, sometimes we run across to the Austin Jewish Academy or to the early childhood program, but we're gonna find a 10th because it's critical, because we have people who want to say the mourner's prayer or to hear the Torah read, and we can only do that if we have 10 adult Jews. So I am pleased to report that today we made a Minyan, and I'm going to share a short story with you, and that is that this morning I got to be 10. It was wonderful. I rushed in. It was a busy day. I'm getting ready, and I'm thinking, do I want to go? Do I not want to go? I've got so much to do. We've got to get everything ready as my body is getting ready and walking out the door. So apparently I was going. And I got here, and I counted 9 heads. And I thought, wow, I'm 10. And there's a really special feeling that goes along with that. And there's a feeling of mattering. And I think that many people have said in today's society, one of the problems we face is people feeling like they don't matter. And one of the opportunities we have in Judaism is to really matter. And in making a Minyan, you matter. But the truth of the matter is that I didn't make 10. Each one of us made 10. Had any one of us stepped outside, how many would have been? 9. I'm counting on the kids out there. Keep us honest. Yes, if just one person had walked outside, we would have 9, and then we couldn't do those prayers that we need to. So we did have a Minyan. We did have 10. It was a beautiful thing that people could say the mourner's prayer. And I think that a lot of Judaism is about knowing that you've got community around you. You've got people who've got your back. And keeping going with the rituals is a way that we're going to make sure that we transmit Judaism to future generations. Am I coming back or am I done? Because I'd like to read just the last few pages.
You're coming back to read the whole thing.
Oh.
So,
all right.
So take a break now and we'll bring you back.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
We had too much to do to rehearse, so it's a work in progress. How many of you have already bought the book? Wow, look at that. Thank you so much. How many of you are fixing to buy the book? Okay, and those of you on the internet, we're going to show you later where you can order it from, because God forbid you shouldn't buy books. And one of the things that can really help us is that when you leave here, we hope to just fill you up with good food and wine and inspiration, and that we want you to go and really share this book with everybody that you know, the rabbis you grew up with, and you get the whole thing. So now I just have I'm gonna wait till the end and tell you the story of how I got involved with this, but what I'd like to do now is bring up the illustrator. So Susan Simon has been an illustrator. This is her 18th book in Judaism. 18 is the number for Chai. It's a really magical number for us. This is her 18th book. She brought her original illustrations, and they're in the back, so I hope after we're done, you'll take a moment to look at it, because I think people have never actually been able to see, what does an illustrator do? You see the book, but you never know. She hand paints these things. It takes forever. She flew in from Tucson last night to be with us. So would you please welcome Susan Simon? You know, how many of you, when you were a kid, you put on a talent show, right? You know, and so like my big brother came from Santa Fe to play the piano, and I thought, it's kind of like an adult talent show. You know, because when you're a kid, you're never sure what you're going to be when you grow up. You know, like I really didn't have publisher on my list of things I was going to be when I grew up, but here I am. Also, of course, I'm an author, and we have many books. Did we mention we have books to buy? She's warming up her iPad. Well, my mother, who wrote, you know, like 21 books, said, you have to tell people to buy the book. I'm like, Mom, people know to buy it. She's like, no, because if you say, well, buy the book, then they start thinking, oh, well, who else could I buy it for? I'm just saying.
Hello, everybody. I'm just I have to get into my iPad because I'm going to read what I'm going to say. I don't want to miss, I want to say what I really want to say. When I first received the manuscript, Almost a Minyan, its story resonated deeply with me, and for more than one reason. It resonated with me because of its feminism, and it resonated with me because it was the story of a beloved grandfather who left heritage that was genuinely and deeply felt. My family moved to the U.S. when I was 5. My mother's parents in London. My father was from the view of an adult. I know from stories told about him that he had a temper, but I remember him laughing with my father. I was a little afraid of him, and from my little girl's point of view, he was crusty indeed. I know that life had not always been kind to him. But among other things, my grandfather was an amateur artist. Had the excellencies of his life been different, I bet he would have been a wonderful painter. He had himself to paint as an adult. As a tiny child, I knew that much about him. And also that he wanted very much for me to go to his shoulder. When I was very up, a painting he himself. He was also deeply me with respect and admiration and in my grandfather's for observance was so because he was truly thinking and he felt so deeply sorry on Yom Kippur. For my grandfather it wasn't for show or going through the motions. And maybe it was because I could tell how much my father loved him. But as children do, in picking a special adult as their focus of adoration, crusty as he was, I loved my grandfather very much. There was a lot of anxiety in the air then. It wasn't that long after World War II, and all safety and solidity seemed to me to reside in this rough, gruff old man who appeared to me to know how to do everything. So every morning when we lived with him, he got up very early, and so I did too. To get to his study, he had to cross the front hall. So I would get up early and I would go and hide under the table in the front hall and wait for him. And when he came shuffling along, I would jump out from under the table and surprise him. I fully believe this action was as surprising to him the 50th time I did it as it was the first. It was just as thrilling for me every time I did it, and it felt just as clever. And then he would go to his study. He would take a deck of cards out of his desk drawer, and he would play solitaire. I knew he was thinking about the day ahead. That was his way, and we wouldn't talk. I would just stand beside his chair. I would lean on the arm and watch him play. My memory is of two people who were simply very happy to be together. When my parents, when I was 5, nobody told me that my grandfather wasn't coming with us. That was remarkable. At least it still is when I read it. And that is, he took me out to lunch. Not for any reason. Not with my siblings, and not by myself. He took me to a small restaurant where I bet he went often for lunch because all of the waiters knew him. And maybe it was just convenience that he did that. Maybe it was some kind of happenstance that for my mother that particular day it was most convenient to leave me at his office by myself. I don't know, but I can tell you that I've never had a more wonderful lunch in all my life. I sat up at the table across from my grandfather, just the two of us, and he told the waiters to call me Miss Simon. I couldn't read, but the waiters helped me with the menu, and for the very first time in my life, I got to pick what I had for lunch instead of being told what I was having. I enjoyed that lunch so much. I still remember what I had. And to add wonder upon wonder, on the table was a small glass vase with a single flower in it, a carnation, a white carnation, with red stripy flecks on the petals. So at that lunch, on top of everything else that was wonderful, there on the table was the most beautiful flower I had ever seen in my whole 5-year-old life. When lunch was finished, we stood up to go, and my grandfather reached over the table, and he took the carnation out of its vase, and he turned to me, and he bowed, and he handed the carnation to me. It was the most incredible thing that had ever happened to me, to be given that beautiful flower from my home, to take home with me, and to be given it by my grandfather. So maybe it's happenstance, or maybe there was some kind of deep connection between me and my grandfather that maybe I won't ever understand. But he died on the morning of my 13th birthday. And going forward, life has not always been easy, but with his Judaism and his love, he left me something in my heart that has been of continuous and immeasurable value. We do matter to those who come after us, and that's what this book is about. As I grew up, I was a very religious child, and I got more so in my late 20s. And at some point, my mother gave me a gold 10 Commandments. It was clearly precious to her, and it was a decision to give it to me. She told me that my grandfather used to keep it in his pocket and rub it when he was anxious or thinking. And it's right here, and it stays with me. And how much and what it means to me is what I am talking about now and what this book is about. My favorite illustration in the whole book, I'll show you, it's not on the back wall, is the last spread. And this illustration by the way, was actually suggested by Laurie, by the author. And it shows all the characters together, actually in synagogue. I don't know if you can see it at that distance. But you'll notice that the girl, the main character, is not sitting between her parents. Okay? She is the closest to the Bima and the open Torah. It may not be the best bit of drawing in the book, but I enjoyed drawing the dad in this picture so much. I wanted him to look so proud of his daughter, a man with so much love and joy inside that he could barely contain himself. The mom has tears in her eyes. I thought this was just truthful from my own life experience. The oppression of women is intense enough that I think many women, when they see their daughters fly free, feel a twinge of the cloud and weight of the freedoms and powers that they themselves were denied. Yet mothers so often pull harder than anyone for their daughters. My mother wasn't allowed to go to art school, and she pulled for me that way. I think there's a generosity the situation has required of many women that is never mentioned and is beyond admirable. But the girl in the picture, this is the most important thing, is my favorite bit of drawing in the whole book. Because she is not there to please her dad. She's not being good. She's not doing what she ought to do. She's there on her own terms and for her own reasons. And she's clearly fully engaged. And for her, you can see that the adventure of Torah study has indeed just begun. So Debbie and her instinct to produce Jewish children's literature of depth and quality. One reason, clearly, that I think that we need to pass on Judaism is because life isn't easy, and because its traditions, its ethics, its humor, and its deepest philosophical and spiritual content over thousands of years in a multitude of situations and cultures, people in hard times have found sustenance in them, therein. And that makes it something I want children to have as they go into the future. I feel like I'm going on to it. Every life is truly an expedition into the unknown, and a sense of deep connection to those who went before is a profound resource. It's a help, and it's a comfort, and a hand from the past that can give us the knowledge that in a big sense, we're not really alone. But as parents and educators, we can't force the issue. We can't manipulate children to do things. They have to make their own choices. But what we can do is be honest and open and let our children see what our traditions mean to us. And we can show our children how dearly we love them. And then, whatever life brings them, they will have a huge amount to go on. Lori's gorgeous text, For Almost a Minyan, is a story about exactly that. And it tells that story exquisitely. And I hope that I have done it justice, and that I have helped to create something special to pass on. The story inside these pages is about a grandfather and father who passed their beloved tradition on. And the book, too, is an example of, in this case, 3 Jewish women passing beloved tradition on. But Debbie embarked on this adventure not having done a children's book before, truly an expedition into the unknown. It's an extremely difficult and complex thing to create well. There's a whole lot more to it than one would realize at the outset. And over the course of the last 2.5 years, Debbie has earned my admiration for her courage, her insight, her natural eye for an appreciation of what works and what's beautiful, her very special ability to know what's good, her staunch courage and standing up for what she thinks. Her excited and passionate commitment to bringing something wonderful into the world. Her determination, her persistence, her commitment to what's good. She's brave. She has earned my love. The loving, honest, smart, and humble person that she is. So, I would like to give her a very small little memento of us working together, okay, to celebrate this wonderful event that she has made happen.
I won! I forgot when they say a party that it was going to have gifts. It's stuck in there. Well, let's see. She said just rip into it. I love that. All right. Here, you hold that. All right, ready? Oh.
It says, Debbie, you're one in a million. You know, working with creative geniuses just makes it all worth it, doesn't it?
All right. Well, here's to us.
All right, so thank you. Wow. So I just want to tell you like how this, look, everyone's here. It's just a full room full of thank you so much for coming here. So this is how this whole thing started. Mike O'Krent, wave your hand, Mike O'Krent. Lori went to Mike O'Krent and said, hey, I've written a book and I need some advice on publishing. And he's like, well, you should talk to Debbie. So Lori says, hey, I need some advice on publishing. And I said, well, fine, come over to my house and I'll give you some advice. Now, at the time, I was working on a book with Minyan. And by the way, we just almost got that book finished. Thank you very much. And so before she came over, I said to myself, Debster, whatever she brings, you are not publishing it. You have way too much to do. So you're going to send her to Carbin, which is like the biggest Jewish publishing company, and they're going to take it and be fine. So I had it all figured out. I talked to myself. I knew exactly what I was going to do. So she comes over, and she sees the cat bowl on my front porch, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you're allergic. She's like, yeah, emergency room. So I'm like, well, we'll sit on the front porch. Then she goes, well, have you read the book? I'm like, no, did you send it? She said, yeah, I did. And so I hadn't seen it. So she runs inside to use the facilities, and I read the book. And she comes out, and I'm crying. And before I realized it, I said, I'm publishing this book. Well, how come? Well, because it so moved me. And I was like, this is something beautiful to put out in the world. And I thought, and why should Carbin make $1 gazillion when I could make $1 gazillion? I'm just being honest, I did have that thought. So I shook her hand and I gave her a contract right on the spot. And then I remembered that I had been at the Highlights Foundation. They give, and I'd taken a workshop on writing Jewish children's books. And while I was there, I had met Susan Simon, this illustrator, and I had looked at her work and said to myself then, if I ever write a Jewish children's book, I'm hiring this woman because her stuff was genius, as you can tell. And so after I said I'm going to do it, all of a sudden I'm like, I know the illustrator. So then, you know, I called her up all excited, and she's thinking, you know, who is this little, you know, I've never done a children's book, you know, and I mean, I didn't realize, but she's like this top tier illustrator. I mean, like she worked for like the best illustrator company in the U. I just looked at her stuff and went, oh my God, this is amazing. And of course I have chutzpah, and I'm like, well, of course she's gonna work with me. Like, why wouldn't she, you know? I mean, it helps when you're a legend in your own mind, so. And after a lot of emails and some phone calls, she said yes. And she cut me a deal because there's no way I could really have afforded her. There's just not. I mean, there's not. And she gave me like 4 times the amount of artwork that I paid, the price, like what I paid her, and then what I got. You know, and she poured her heart into every drawing, as you'll be able to see. So I'm so glad you brought your stuff, because you'll be able to see it. So we went on a journey, and I'd never done a children's book. I needed a book designer, so I pulled in my graphic designer, Kim Brill. Kim, are you here? Would you just wave? She's in the back there. So she all the stuff I didn't know about color and design and everything, she helped figure it out with Susan. And then Terry Sherrill is here from One Touch Point. Would you just raise your hand? She's the one who actually printed the book, so she brought her vast experience, because I said what I wanted, and then she like made it good. You know, it's good to have a team of amazing people. And then my dad's here from Dallas. He's 92. Dad, you want to just wave? He's wave. No, he's sleeping. All right. Well, he's back there, so thank him. Love him. He just turned 92 on Sunday. So that's how it happened. There were times when the author was mad at me. There were times when the illustrator was mad at me. There were times when both the author and the illustrator were mad at me. There were times when Kim never got mad at me. You know, I appreciated that, because we'd go out to, the only reason is because we'd go out to lunch every week, and you know, we'd like work out what we needed to. I think this book is going to be a classic. I think it's going to win major Jewish Children Book Awards. It's already gotten, I don't know, for those of, how many of you are my friends on Facebook? It's gotten incredible reviews. So, and mostly by people who aren't Jewish. They're like, we don't even understand half the words, and we love this book. So imagine if you are Jewish and you understand. Imagine how much you're going to love. I'm just saying. All right, so now we're going to bring Lori up, and she's going to read the book, and maybe we can turn down the lights a little bit, and we're going to show it on the screen as she reads it.
You have many things on your computer. Is it one of these?
Oh, you need some light to read?
While they're doing that, I want to continue the story of how the book transpired. I was leading the talk services here at Agudas, and each week, or most weeks, I would create a play for the toddlers, just to make the portion of the week fun, funny, bring in futuristic things that didn't belong in ancient times, that kind of thing. And a very good friend of mine, Rabbi Rachel Kobrin, said, if you write a play for every parsha, every portion of the Torah, I guarantee you it will get published. And I thought, published? I should show her my book, Almost a Minyan. So again, I grew up in a traditional background, right? So women didn't do much, girls didn't do much. And that never bothered me growing up, because that's just how it was. I didn't think otherwise. So I took the manuscript to Rachel, Rabbi Kobrin, and she read it, and she said, this is a marvelous story. And if you make the protagonist female, every woman rabbi in the country will want it. And it really took me by surprise, because it just had never occurred to me. And I said, let me think on that. And it took me a long time to think on that, and decided maybe this book had brought that time. Maybe it was time for that story. For me, it was about a small town struggling and about the generations. And one of my hopes was this would encourage generations to talk to each other, to tell their stories, and parents to tell their stories to their kids about what happened with them. So this persona, an egalitarian story, and a coming of that it may not have originally been. And
book, you can follow it along in your book.
Simon. For Rabbi J. David, my brother, mentor, and inspiration, voice in Minyan. That's from me. And from our wonderful illustrator, Susan Simon, Salbach, and Rabbi Joshua. The rule. Papa arises born from his travels and kind of weather. One day you'll join all your prayer gear. Gently he adds, the time is drawing. A town that has just even on quite full. So mornings at 7, it's often the case. There's almost a Minyan, except for one face. Or maybe it's 2, and sometimes it's 3. In less than a year, that face could be me. You see, for a Minyan, you have to have 10 adult Jewish folks who are women or men before we can say certain prayers from our siddur. And when we get 10, well, Papa's eyes glitter. For then we can say prayers like Kaddish and Baruch Hu. There must be a Minyan to read Torah, too. So each morning at 7, he heads out the door to daven, then kibbutz, then head to his store. He carries his talis and tefillin together, worn from his travels and all kinds of weather. And sometimes I watch him and fill up with glee, quietly thinking, that 10th could be me. On weekdays, it's hardest to get the full 10, but Shabbos each week, they make Minyan again. For Zadie comes stays with us each Friday night with kiddush and singing and food to delight. Then off to the shul, Zadie treks with my father, and though it gets dark, both say, it's no bother. 2 months ago, Shabbos, my Zadie took ill, and Papa stayed with him a whole week until my Papa returned, saying Zadie has gone. He's lived a good life, and now he's passed on. All week, people gathered at our house each night, and we made a Minyan by one candle's light. And though every night all 10 made a Minyan, it didn't cheer Papa, in my opinion. The next several weeks, well, they seemed rather odd. Papa would pass me and not even nod. Each morning I noticed that as he got dressed, a small torn black ribbon was pinned to his vest. Still just before 7, he'd head out the door to daven and kibbutz and head to his store. He carried his talis and tefillin together, worn from his travels and all kind of weather. And though he said nothing to me, not out loud, I think he felt better in prayer with that crowd. One morning soon after, he came to my door. His eyes held a twinkle. What on earth for? My daughter, he beckoned, his voice like a song. Let's make a Minyan, you must come along. But Papa, I reasoned, I'm still just a tween. That so special birthday we have not yet seen. Your Hebrew birthday, he said with a smile, began at sundown. It's been here a while. I jumped from my covers and scrambled to dress. My thoughts were all jumbled. My hair was a mess. I hustled to ready for what lay in store. Then Papa and I headed straight out the door. But once at the shul, well, I became frantic. I must admit, yes, I felt a bit panicked. I hadn't the tallis or tefillin to don. I felt almost naked. What would I put on? I glanced all around me, but hadn't a clue. Then I looked to Papa. What should I do? This is my absolute favorite illustration. Was Papa embarrassed? His eyes held a tear. He opened his bag and he pulled me quite near. These were my papas, said Papa to me, and each time you wear them, I think you will see. His tallis and tefillin carry his spirit. Wrapped in his love, you can always be near it. And so we laid tefillin, my Papa and I. At first it was tricky, and I felt quite shy. But once I was finished, I felt so connected to Papa and Zadie and all they respected. Papa smiled proudly. He teared up again. Then grinning, he told me, today you make 10. Thank you.
Now you see why I had to publish it. Okay, now we're coming to the best part, which is we're giving away 2 copies of the book. So take out your red tickets, and Lori, if you'll do us the honor of drawing one. Don't look.
Well, I do have to tell a quick story. I was coming down the hall from Minyan just before this started, and the woman at the table said, "Oh, would you like a ticket? You might win a free copy of the book." No. Would you like a wine glass? All right, and our winning ticket ends in 4989. Is that person here? No. Or am I reading it?
Got to be present to win. All right.
Okay, let's try again. How about 4979?
Hang on.
And we've got 4983.
Yeah. So we're going to continue the party with wine and food. Michelle, the author and illustrator, are going to sit right over here where Michelle is, and y'all come get your book signed. And thanks for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Bring the lights up. Pictures will be better.
Yeah, get him signed.
Don't forget to eat cake. There's cake. Be sure and get a piece of cake before you go.
I feel much older. Good.